Hey guys, Spud here, and today we're doing some prep work for the forthcoming release of the DCS F4U Corsair from Magnitude 3. Now today's video is unscripted and free-flowing, and hopefully by making it I am not jinxing the release schedule for the Corsair, because it's safe to say that the F4U is my most anticipated Warbird for DCS. And I think that's just because growing up, I was always immersed in the stories from my family members who flew in the PTO, and growing up on the West Coast, I could visit places like Alameda Harbor and Pearl Harbor and San Diego Harbor, and visit the Midway and the Hornet and see the Pearl Harbor Memorial. And I tend to think that the nature of the air combat in the Pacific Theater of Operations lends itself better to games and simulators than that of the Western European Theater of Operations, but that's just a me thing. And I figured, of course, the P-47 here would be the best way to prep for the Corsair, because both are powered by the Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp engine. Now, I think I'm pretty prepared to fly a radial engine airplane here in DCS after buying, owning, and operating a Yak 55, but we'll see how it goes today. We've got ourselves a copy of the Republic P-47 Pilot's Manual, as well as we have a beer here with us today to get us through today's flight. And thankfully, the Shah of Daimar, our beloved benevolent dictator, keeps his warbirds in combat-ready fashion. We've got 10 5-inch high-velocity aerial rockets to play with and a full load of 50 cal ammo. So let's jump. It's safe to say that I'm also very excited to bring the Corsair to our fictional Burning Sands universe and timeline, and I can't wait to apply a beautiful Royal Daimar Air Force paint scheme to a Corsair. So let's go ahead and get started here. We've got a bit of a rain squall moving in, so let's get the canopy closed so we don't get too wet. Alright, got the canopy closed here, and going to our pilot's manual, let's scroll down to the engine start section of the pilot's manual. We've got all of the pre-flight items complete here, of course, because we are flying in a simulator. So when it comes to starting the engine, we definitely need to turn the propeller a few revolutions by hand to make sure any excess fuel or oil is out of those lower cylinders that could cause hydraulic lock. That is the worst thing that can happen with a big radial engine, of course. And being a sim, of course, that was complete as well. Okay, so on the P-47C, D, and G, master battery switch on, we've got that already. Ignition switch to bat, we've got that. Supercharger lever to off, make sure that is in the aft position, we're good to go there. Okay, fuel selector valve main and crack throttle 1 to 1.5 inches. We'll get that, there's main. There's the throttle cracked a bit for us. Back to the manual here. Mixture control is at idle cutoff. It is already. Propeller switch in automatic and propeller control full forward. Okay, so prop lever is going full forward. Propeller is in automatic. That's perfect. Fuel boost pump control, start and altitude. Fuel boost, let's see, where is that in this aircraft? I don't think it is actually in this aircraft here in DCS. I looked for it earlier before starting our recording, and I just could not find it, so I think that I'm missing something there, but I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comments down below. Okay, so then we're going to go prime, 2 to 4 strokes if a hot start, and 4 to 6 if cold. This aircraft hasn't flown yet today, and we are in a bit of a rain squall, so I'm going to call that cold. So let's go ahead and give her 6 squirts of prime, and this prime lever looks almost identical to the one in my Yak 55, which is kind of cool. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We'll get that locked back down. Ignition switch to both. Get the mag switch to both. Perfect. And we're going to energize at least 15 seconds on the starter, and then we're going to engage the starter itself. Okay, we can do that. And then once the engine catches and starts to cough, we're going to move the mixture control to auto rich and bring the throttle to 900 RPM. That makes sense. Okay, starter to the energized position for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, we'll hit the wheel brakes. We'll engage the prop. There she goes. Bring the throttle up. Hit the starter again a little bit, and there we go. We've got a started up P-47. We've got our RPM at 900. That's perfect. We're going to make sure our cowl flaps are open as far as they'll go for now. We're going to make sure that our intercooler as well as our oil cooler are in the neutral positions. And we are going to warm up our engine to make sure that our oil is not too viscous for a takeoff. Now, this is very, very important in a radial engine airplane, especially important in an inline engine like in the P-51 off to our right-hand side as well. But with a radial engine, it's really, really important to ensure that we avoid hydraulic lock at all costs here. So keeping the engine at a low RPM until our oil gets nice and warm is what we need to see. And then, of course, as our oil warms up and gets less and less viscous, our oil pressure is going to start to drop. And we want to see that oil pressure start to get towards the middle of the blue section here. Of course, we're also going to keep an eye on our CHT and make sure that our CHT doesn't get anywhere up above 215 or so throughout today's flight. So moving back to the manual, let's make sure we've got everything good to go. All right, oil pressure is good. We're not going to increase power above 1000 RPM until our oil pressure comes down a little bit. We're going to warm up at 800 to 1000 RPM until the pressure is normal. Good to go there. We're not scrambling, so we can skip emergency takeoff. And we'll go ahead and, just for the sake of time today, we'll go ahead and skip the run-up tests as well, just because we know that we've got a safe and good to go airplane here in a sim. Okay, so we'll unlock our tail wheel for taxiing. And of course, we're going to make some S-turns to look for obstacles. Make sure our trim tabs are good to go. Mixture control is going to be in auto rich. Propeller is going to be in max. Flaps are going to be up. That's a little surprising. Cowl flaps open. That makes sense. Keep an eye on our engine instruments here. Cool. Looks like the oil is definitely warming up. That's what we want to see. And it looks like our oil pressure is still staying up, but that's okay for now. Hopefully once we get the oil temp up into the blue, our pressure will drop slightly. But at least we are within the blue okay section. Let's see here. For our flaps, half flaps will improve takeoff. Cool, we'll go with half flaps for takeoff for today. Takeoff, and with or without turbine supercharger, we'll go ahead and do a turbine supercharger takeoff. And with the turbine control and full on, we can go all the way up to 52 inches of manifold pressure for our takeoff. So we'll go with that, those numbers for today. And our climb out speed is going to be about 140 to 150 knots of indicated airspeed. Perfect, that's looking good. Alright, so we'll just keep everything warming up here. And we can see our oil pressure is now starting to drop a little as our oil gets warmer and warmer. That is definitely a very important thing for today. For our oil cooler, let's go ahead and shut it a little bit just to speed up our warm-up time just a little bit. Still keeping our RPM between 800 and 1000. Okay, we're really close to getting up above the red line. So I think that we should be okay and safe to start our taxi. We should be able to taxi no problem with our RPM at 100, or 1,000 I should say. So we'll go ahead and bring our oil cooler back to neutral. We will unlock our tail wheel, and we'll start our gentle and slow taxi out. So of course, being a good and safe tailwheel pilot, we're going to hold our stick all the way aft, and we are just going to start a gentle roll, just coming on forward just a little bit, still staying below that 1,000 RPM threshold, and we're going to go full left rudder and hit the left wheel brake. Did I lock the tail wheel? Yep, sure did. Whoops. We'll make sure it's unlocked. There we go. Now we should be able to turn. Alright. And of course we'll start to perform some S-turns, so that way we can get safely around these F4s here and look for any obstacles. Typically when I do S-turns in a tailwheel airplane, I like to perform the S-turn to the right, see the center line off the left side of the nose, perform the S-turn to the left, see the center line off the right side of my nose, and that way we know we're good. Oil's still warming up a little bit, but we can see our oil pressure is definitely fallen by quite a bit, which is perfect. That's what we want to see. And we'll make sure that we don't hit the Shaw's F-16s over here, but we're going to check and make sure that we're good to go on our taxi run. Let's check our airport diagram here. Yep, we're going the right way. And here at Hatzor, we're just going for runway 21 left. And I'm an idiot. Looks like I just did a little bit of a taxiway excursion there. Fantastic. Good example to show the viewers. Everything's looking good there. Still continuing on with our S-turns. It's definitely easy to say that it is a lot harder to fly a tailwheel airplane in a simulator than it is in real life, because man, I cannot feel the airplane worth crap here in the simulator, whereas if I were in the real airplane I would be able to feel it no problem and be a lot less stupid looking with all these S-turns. Looking at our diagram again, I think we're good. And awesome, looks like the rain is easing up a little bit on us. That'll be helpful. And of course, as we're taxiing here, I'm just always keeping an eye on that RPM gauge and making sure that we are not exceeding 1,000 RPM until we feel good about our oil temperature and our oil pressure, of course. Alright, coming up to the hold short line of runway 21 left. 29 left, that is, actually. And we'll just slowly brake. Alright, so when it comes to flying Warbirds here in DCS, guys, I always recommend that you go with all of the assist functions turned off, because the assist functions, in my opinion, tend to really mess you up more than they actually help. Alright, we'll go ahead and uncage our gyro for our attitude indicator. And looks like we are getting over the red and into the blue in our oil temperatures. That's fantastic. And we can see, as a result of our oil getting less and less viscous, our oil pressure is now solidly in the blue here. So that is fantastic to see. Okay, doing a sweep over the cockpit here. We'll go ahead and set half flaps on our flaps for our takeoff. Now let's see. That looks more about half flaps, so that's good to go. Checking our oil one last time. Keeping that run up going. And I think for the sake of time here for this video, we should be good to go. We're going to bring our supercharger lever all the way forward for today's takeoff, which should definitely give us some interesting sounds here in the cockpit. And we'll release the brakes. We'll taxi out onto the runway. We'll straighten up our tail wheel, of course, and then we will double check to ensure that we get our tail wheel locked, because the torque put out by this double Wasp engine and that big old 13-foot diameter prop is going to be extreme. All right. Getting nice and lined up here. And we'll go ahead and get her straightened out. Tail wheel's locked, that should be good. Checking our engine values, everything is looking good. And we're starting to get into the green for our oil temperature. Oil pressure is definitely in the green. All the way forward, auto rich for the mixture. We've got our supercharger lever on. Half flaps, we are good to rock and roll. Let's do it. We're just gonna start to bring our stick out of our belly. Looking for 52 inches of manifold pressure for the takeoff. A little bit of right rudder. Start to bring the nose up. More right rudder. Woo. And we are off. Bring the gear up. And we'll get the flaps up. And we'll start to back off on the manifold pressure and back off on the RPM. Get the RPM into the green. And we're looking for 140 knots on the climb out. Make sure that we get our cowl flaps all the way open, so that way our oil doesn't get too hot. Cowl flaps are now open all the way. All right, and we made it. We are up in the air over the Sinai map. We have to back off a little bit on the manifold pressure. Everything is looking good. Oil temperature is looking good. Intercooler and our oil cooler are still neutral, should be good there. Got our ball centered up, so let's go ahead and trim her out a little bit. And we're definitely faster than our best climb speed. So we'll go ahead and we will climb up a little steeper. Coming through 4,000 feet. Oil temp is still looking good. And let's go ahead and start to roll off to the left, and we'll start to head out to the range where we'll do a little bit of strafing and a little bit of rocket shooting. That whistling sound and that humming sound that we can hear is our supercharger smashing that air down to give a lot more oxygen to burn in those cylinders. A little more right rudder, keep that ball nice and centered up. And why don't we level off at 6,500 feet. That'll be a good VFR altitude for us. Don't want to get in the way of any other traffic around the Kingdom of Daimar here as we're flying around in our fictional universe. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of right rudder trim. That way we can ease off on pushing on that right rudder. That looked good. Keeping that ball nice and centered up. Always checking our engine instruments. Everything's looking good there. RPM's in the green. Whoop. And we definitely passed 6,500 feet, so let's go ahead and spring her back on down a little bit. Alright. Feels good to be back in a prop plane in DCS. Haven't flown one of the Whirlybirds in quite a while. And we are getting fast, starting to come up on 250 miles an hour. Pretty fast for the P-47, that's why we're starting to shake a little bit here. And we can see all of our engine instruments, CHT, oil pressure, oil temperature are all good to go. I think another thing that has got me excited about the Corsair is simply the fact, of course, that the Corsair had a much longer service life than a lot of the other World War II airplanes, so she will be right at home with quite a few of the jets that we already have, such as the Sabre, as well as the upcoming F-100 even, in some nation services. And it'll be pretty cool to be able to reenact the football war and have dogfights between P-51s and F4U Corsairs. That'll definitely be pretty cool. Alright, and she is starting to shake herself apart. Everything's in the green. Flaps are all the way up. She just doesn't like to go fast, I suppose. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our master arm on, and we'll get our gun sight turned on. I typically, when doing ground strafing in Warbirds, will almost always use the gyro sight as well as the fixed gun sight reticle. And the reason for that is so that way I can get a good bead on what my rudder pedals are doing. So if I move my rudder pedals back and forth, I can kind of see where my guns are going to be kind of tracking towards, and it helps me keep the ball centered on my strafing run, having that gyro gun sight. And I actually use the gyro gun sight quite a bit as I'm flying the aircraft just normally, so that way I don't have to constantly keep my eye on the ball down there as I'm adjusting my rudder pedals. Because if I can kind of keep my gyro gun sight right in the middle there on the y-axis of the fixed sight, then I know that my ball is basically centered. And there's that beautiful Royal Daimar paint scheme made by Bumble, one of my community members, who did a full-on skin pack for me for the Royal Daimar Air Force, depicting it in 1955, which is pretty cool. We're going to have to do another Warbird mission soon, that's for sure. Alright, still about 6,500 feet, so we're good there. Not quite sure exactly why we are shaking so much. Everything's in the green, everything is good to go, so if anyone knows in the comments down below, please let me know, and I will make sure to rectify that next time I fly the P-47. So let's go ahead and change up what we've got for our wingspan and our range, so that way we can have a little bit of a better sized gyro reticle. And looking on the F10 map, we've got our targets right down here, so about a 30-degree turn, so we'll go ahead and make that turn now. Back off on the RPM just a hair. And we'll get our rockets set up for single fire. That should be good to go. And we've got our selector switch in the default rockets position. We should be good to go there. And we've got our bomb, tank, rocket safety switch. We'll set that master arm switch to arm. Little bit of left rudder trim. Ease off on the rudders a little bit there. Yep, a little more left rudder trim should be good. Alright, everything's looking good. Looks like it climbed up a little bit. Let's come back on down to 6,500 feet. One thing that I don't see readily here is how do I get the oxygen regulator turned on? Is it here? Nope, that's oxygen emergency bypass. Don't want that. The cockpit vent. I'm not quite sure. We'll have to look up that later. I don't think I'll be doing much super high altitude flying here today. However, it is worth noting that when flying Warbirds in the 21st century, a lot of pilots have exhibited symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning in the cockpits of these old airplanes, and so a lot of pilots these days do prefer to wear and use oxygen masks even at low altitude in these airplanes for that danger of carbon monoxide poisoning. Alright, let's see, where is our target? Just off of our left-hand side. Got a little schmooey on my screen here as I'm flying that I thought were the trucks down there. What? That is not them. I think that our targets are right underneath this rain squall here, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we'll make it work. Pretty darn cool, if you ask me. I love the Sinai map, guys. I think that more people should buy the Sinai map and fly on it, because in my opinion, especially when you add some weather, it is one of the most beautiful maps DCS World has to offer by far. So we'll check on everything. Everything's looking good. Wow, we're using a lot of gas, probably because we're on auto rich. What if we go to auto lean here? And let's see if that can extend our gas a little bit. Probably going to increase our CHT and our oil temperature as a result going to auto lean, but we'll see how it goes and we'll change it up if we need to. Alright, looking for these trucks. Increase our RPM just slightly up to the top of the green, so that way we can get ready for attacking some targets here. And I'm starting to see the trucks just off here, definitely inside that rain squall, but we'll make it work. Looks like our fuel consumption has gone down a little bit, so that's good. Oil temperature is still looking good. CHT is still looking good as well, so it looks like going to auto lean has not affected us too much in that department. Alright. So I think our first pass will deliver some rockets onto these little trucks. And we are way out of whack on our rudder trim, so we'll get the ball back and centered up. Everything's still green. Perfect. And We are rolling in. And we're going to be off to the left to get out of this rain squall. Alright, rolling out. And that's all she wrote on rockets. And we're coming off to the left. And she is shaking like a leaf. I don't think we hit anything with our rockets. Let's look at the map. Just a little bit of damage on one of those trucks. So well. Probably fired him from too far away without a steep enough dive. Is probably the problem there. So we'll trade some airspeed for altitude. And we'll roll back on in. And we'll be out to the right this time to stay out of the worst of this rain squall. Keeping an eye on all of our engine instruments. Using that gyro gun sight to work our rudder pedals to keep a nice straight bead on the target. And we'll pull off, make sure we don't fly through our ricochets. And it looks like we got one of them. Perfect. I think I like the gun sound in the P-51 better than in the P-47 here, but that's just a me thing. Trading our airspeed for some altitude again. All of our pressures are looking good, temperatures are looking good, CH2 is looking good. Roll back in. And we got a couple of trucks in a nice line for us. And I mean, man, 850 cals is definitely going to do some damage, that's for sure. And these M2 Brownings have a much, much higher cyclic rate than a regular round-based M2 Browning, because we can cool these guns off a lot faster and a lot more effectively from the slipstream in an aircraft than a static M2 Browning on the ground. So these guns can be tuned to fire a heck of a lot faster. I would say one thing that I'm not a huge fan about with the guns in the P-47 so far is the convergence range between the guns on the wings seems to be very, very close to our aircraft. I'd like it to have them converging a little bit further out, especially for an aircraft like the P-47 that was mostly used for air-to-ground work, where having the guns converge at a longer range is going to be more advantageous for that air-to-ground work. But beggars can't be choosers, and a whole shotgun blast of 50 cal ammo coming at you is definitely not going to be a good thing. Alright, coming back down. Alright. We'll do one more strafing pass, and then we'll head on home for a land. Actually, you know what? Based off of our gas, let's go ahead and head back on home for a landing now, so that way we don't run out of gas on the way there. We'll pull back on the manifold pressure. Check our RPM. CHT is good. Oil temperature is good. Oil pressure is good. Fuel pressure is still good. And man, I feel like if I had been flying the DCS P-51, I will have blown up the engine a long time ago at this point. So it looks like the R2800 double Wasp can take a heck of a lot more abuse and punishment than a Merlin engine, that's for sure. Alright, so let's get a heading to get back to Hatzor. So it's going to be about 10 degrees off of our nose, so we're pointed the right direction. Get her trimmed out here so that way we can get ourselves a nice little heading to fly. Okay, from us here back home to Hatzor is going to be a heading of 012. About right there, it should work. And we'll climb ourselves back on up to about 6,500 or so. So there's 6,000, about 500 more feet to go. Level off. Get everything safed up. Our rockets are already gone. And we should be good to go for our landing. So it looks like VFE is going to be about 195 or so. Perfect. So we will be good to go for our landing, no problem. And we'll land on the same runway we took off on, runway 29 left. Nice 10,000 foot runway, so we should have no problems there. My manifold pressure keeps creeping up quite a bit, so make sure we keep everything in the green here. I really haven't had to touch the intercooler or the oil cooler at all here, which is good. Go ahead and open up the oil cooler a little bit. I've also kept the cowl flaps open the whole time for the most part, but that's okay, everything is looking good. Move the oil cooler, switch the wrong direction. There we go, now it's open. Got a little worried there as I saw the oil temperature pop up close to the red for a second. We'll get it back to neutral as we start to get the oil temp coming down to the other side of the red line. Looks like we've got another rain squall to fly through here, so we better recage and uncage our gyro. Give us a little bit better instruments. Keep our ball nice and centered up. Keep accidentally descending. Let's go ahead and bring her back upstairs a little bit and bleed off some of this excess airspeed that is making us shake like a leaf. It's kind of annoying. I'm not a huge fan of that. Oil temp's still good. Oil pressure's good. Back up to about 6,500 feet on the altitude. Starting to get out of the IMC. out a little bit so we can go a little easier on the stick. And there we go. Trim back out up at 6,500 feet. Kind of got the ball perfectly centered, so I'm just going to hold my feet on the rudders the way we got them. Yeah, she definitely doesn't like to go fast. She likes to definitely shake around up at above about 275 knots or so. And it's nothing that we're doing wrong with the engine from what I can tell. It just seems like she just doesn't like to go fast. It seems to be a little bit exaggerated. Maybe there's a setting I can tune to kind of tune down the shaking of the airplane. And we'll start to set up the geometry for our landing. Okay, there's the field. Now we can see it. Pretty sure that's Hatzor. Some more external views. Maybe get some screenshots here. Yep, there's the runways. We'll go ahead and do an overhead brake because why not? We definitely got the fuel for it. So let's check our landing instructions here. Flight characteristics, engine failures, night flying, warning, stopping engine, okay. Approach landing, reduce speed, 140, 150. Close cowl flaps, mixture control, auto rich. Turbine supercharger off, propeller 2550. Okay, we can do that. So we'll start to bring mixture back to auto rich. Start to descend down to pattern altitude. We'll get our supercharger turned off. What else did we say here? Alright, looks good to me. Perfect. Landing speed's going to be about 140 or 150 knots or so. I will probably come in and approach a lot faster than that, because that's just the way I like to fly tailwheel airplanes, is I usually fly much faster into the touchdown than most manuals tend to say. And that's just a me thing. Oh, interesting. I guess the shaking was caused by the cowl flaps. That's something new that I didn't know. Alright. That's good to know for the future. Okay, coming into the upwind for the overhead. I find it very, very difficult to fly tailwheel airplanes for a straight-in approach, so I'm always doing some kind of a banana approach or an overhead approach or something to get a little bit of curvature on there. So that way I don't have to slip her all the way down to be able to just see the runway. And one's in the brake. Pull the power back, we'll get that speed bled off. Get the flaps down. Get the gear down. And I probably am a little bit close into the runway here, but we'll make it work. Airspeed's looking good. Airspeed's actually getting a little bit slow. And we are beam the numbers. We'll start our banana turn. Flying through the base to our final. I'm at a good altitude, I think. I like to always come in high and hot with a tailwheel airplane, as opposed to low and slow. Because low and slow in a tailwheel airplane will eat your lunch every single time, that's for sure. A little bit too fast, about 150 knots here, or miles per hour I should say. There we go. Nice round turn right onto the runway. That's what we want to see. And now we're just going to hold her off as long as we possibly can. A nice 10,000 foot runway to work with. And we're just working her down. Whoop, little bit of bouncy bounce. Whoop, big bouncy bounce. Alright. As we start to slow on down, I'm going to get the stick back into my lap here. I am not going to touch the wheel brakes. I'm just going to let the airplane aero brake itself all the way down to taxi speed before I even think about touching the brakes. Because with a tailwheel airplane, we've got a whole big surface that is going to be a perfect air brake for us anyway, so there is no reason to touch the wheel brakes and even tempt fate with a ground loop or smashing our prop into the runway. So we'll go ahead and get the tail wheel unlocked again. And we are looking for some sort of a taxiway to get off on. Let's say we'll just taxi onto the intersecting runway here. And make a left-hand turn, and that way we could taxi all the way back to our starting spot. Probably annoying the tower here as they're trying to get a bunch of jets or something into the runway, but that's okay. They can wait for us. It is our runway while we are on it. There we go. So, lesson learned, the cowl flaps are what was causing that shaking. There's probably a limitation that I didn't realize for the cowl flaps in terms of speed, but that's okay. We live and learn, and that's why we enjoy flight simulators like DCS. And we can do it without having to worry about ruining a real airplane. So thanks for watching, guys, and I am so pumped for the Corsair. I cannot wait to fly it. So we will see you in the next one, and fly safe out there, guys.